I'm joined today by Dave Rubin, host of the Rubin Report, comedian, all-around good guy. Dave, great to have you on. You and I have both been covering a story that has been increasingly controversial, not only amongst liberals and conservatives, but actually within the so-called liberal and progressive sphere. And this has been the blow-up that started on Real Time with Bill Maher, now several weeks ago, where Ben Affleck took issue with some of the characterizations that were being made by both Bill Maher and Sam Harris, who was on the panel that day, about the kind of stereotyping and broad, arguably xenophobic or racist comments about Muslims and about Muslim ideology. You were actually in the Bill Maher audience this past weekend, where the situation further escalated in a sense as Bill Maher had yet another conversation about this subject. So set it up for us. What happened at this Bill Maher taping?
Yeah, well, first, let's just back up for the people that either didn't see the original Ben Affleck clip or only saw parts of it. What made me do my video on it was that the way that everybody on the left and on the right equally, I know everyone likes to pretend one side's crazy, but sometimes both sides are equally crazy.
Yeah, and sometimes it's a false balance that people try to draw with that. In this particular case, it actually applies.
Yeah, well, I know that, from being on the left, we always talk about Fox News with a false equivalency. And then suddenly I was seeing the exact same thing coming from our side, which was why I did the video that I did. So basically, if you didn't see it, and even if you saw part of it, you might have only seen the edited portion. And of course, with selective editing, you can make it sound like anyone says anything. You'll be able to take this video and make me sound completely sane or crazy, depending on which way you think about it. So Ben Affleck just simply was not listening to what Sam and Bill were saying, and he just kept throwing out the racist comment. And once you do that, especially within the first minute of a conversation, you've really ruined everything from there on out. And then you've changed the conversation from a legitimate conversation about radicalization and about religion and things of that nature. You've now changed it to where the media then for the next week, 2 weeks, and now it's 4 weeks later almost, and it's still continuing, where the media is just going to keep harping on, is Bill Maher a racist? Is Sam Harris a racist? Which, if you actually listen to the entire thing, they were not condemning all Muslims. Bill Maher is the gold standard, basically, for liberalism, hates all religions. Watch Religulous, his documentary on religions. He hates them all. He stands up for women's rights and gay rights and all these things. And as he said, as a liberal, you have to stand up for liberal principles. So
and let me interject here, just to get us to interject here one thing. I'm not one of these people who thinks that Bill Maher is just great and right about everything he says. I've seen him say crazy stuff. If you look up what he said about aspirin years ago when interviewed by Larry King, it's insanity. So we can also, I think it's important as progressives, not to appoint someone right on all issues necessarily.
Of course. And when I say, the gold standard or whatever it is, it's just that he's out on the forefront, especially when it comes to the religious things and religious tolerance and racial tolerance and all of that. He is on the forefront of that and getting our military out of all these places that they're all over the place. So the idea that the left was somehow framing him as this neocon who wants to spread Christian values is just bonkers. But of course, I don't agree with anyone on everything. I don't even agree with myself on everything. So yes, and he's also said some interesting things about some science-related things to, a whole slew of things. Nobody's perfect, for sure. I'm not a scientist. I often bring on scientists onto my show to clean up the mess that I've created. But my point is that the conversation totally shifted from a legitimate conversation to something that it simply wasn't. And then it continued into this week, and I was in the audience this week. So, yeah.
So tell us about what's the new piece of the conversation now as of the Friday program.
So the new piece is, UC Berkeley wanted to have Bill as their commencement speaker for their December graduation in a couple weeks. And about 2,000 students went on change.org and they wanted to ban him from coming because of his racist, bigoted views. And again, I think we've already made my feelings on that part clear.
Yeah.
Now, of course, this is the 50th anniversary of the big free speech movement at Berkeley. So, the irony is off the charts. And they wanted to ban him. Now, it turned out that the university, as of the day of the taping of Real Time, which was Friday, the university announced that they're not going to ban him. They are going to let him do it. And then he had a journalist on, and I can't even, Ruma, is her name Ruma?
Rula.
Rula. And she basically, so Bill brought it up, he said his piece and was ready to move on. He just wanted to get past it. He was saying, I will come and speak. It's not going to be about this topic. I'm going to try to give you a little wisdom that I have attained over the years of my life. And then she jumped in and continually, attacking him for all his views. Again, she didn't say the word racist, but it's all implied there, and started using some false equivalency with if someone was saying this about Jews or about black people. There's also the interesting thing that, Islam is not a race. It's a religion. So all the words get all crossed up. And
well, I think, Dave, I think that this is where, for all the parts about what Bill Maher has said that I agree with, I think the biggest fault about how Bill Maher has been addressing this issue, both in the controversial segment with Sam Harris and in this most recent one with Rula, is that he's not really contextualizing the issue of Islam in terms of culture, ethnicity, and religion. And of course, there are numerous ethnicities that predominantly practice Islam. Historically, the kind of people of Islam were much more united politically. That fell apart later beyond the Ottoman Empire. And there is much more to this than this kind of hypothetical Muslim ideology. So I think that's the biggest criticism I have of how he's been dealing with this.
Right. And I completely agree with that. And, it's interesting because what you just said there, that's a pretty heavy statement that would have to be really fleshed out. And this is what the media has become terrible about. You get 5-minute segments to bang all this stuff out, and there's a lot of subtext and there's a lot of nuance to what you just said. And also, listen, I'm Jewish, so I understand that people are viewed in different ways. For example, I play basketball with a group of guys on Sundays, including some of my TYT people, Cenk Uygur, who is formerly Muslim, but he's Turkish, Steve O, who is Korean. And when we're talking about, we'll be joking, the Turk and the Korean guy and the Jew. So I understand that Jews, it's partly ethnic, and you know what I mean? Like it's a big mess.
Yeah.
But I think you have to take the breadth of work of what someone does to say whether they're racist or not. But anyway, the point is he brings her on the show to say, I want to end this thing. I want to, try to make a better conversation about this. She then goes on about how he shouldn't be allowed to speak, basically calling him a racist again. And then, it's showing how, she kept saying how, there's no chance for a rebuttal. But that's not the point of a commencement speech, number one, to have a rebuttal. And also in the public square, sometimes people give speeches and you don't like what they hear. That's what free speech is. You know what I mean? Now, I get this isn't about the First Amendment. So when I've talked about this before, people are immediately, well, this isn't about the government, so it's not about the First Amendment. And that. But there's political correctness may be a bigger danger to free speech than actually losing the First Amendment. So it's a lot of stuff. It's a lot of stuff.
And I think that one of the most both interesting and also somewhat concerning things that I've observed, and this could apply to my analysis here and to much of what's been going on, to my analysis of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, which both sides criticize me on for being in the tank for the opposite side, and for a bunch of other issues, interestingly enough, including Gamergate, which is something I've been covering recently.
Yeah, we'll talk about that.
We talk very often about the fracturing of the Republican Party, and that's a very kind of political fracturing. There's an ideological fracturing that I'm increasingly noticing among not the Democratic Party, but amongst progressives. And what does it mean for something to be progressive in terms of its ideology?
Yeah, so this is huge. And I've been thinking about this a lot lately, and it's really starting to change some of the underpinnings of what I believe. The left is fracturing a little bit, or I guess the progressive part of the left, so the real, further left, is fracturing a little bit. When this whole Bill Maher thing, the Sam Harris thing came out, and when I saw all these people attacking Bill and then attacking Sam Harris without really understanding what they were saying, what I realized is that, somehow in our world, I suppose, the right is always framed as totally intolerant, and they hate women and they hate minorities and all this stuff that we can say and say and say. And I don't know how much it even means anymore if you just keep saying it. But then what I started seeing is all these people turning, suddenly the left was turning on the atheists. And it's like the atheists are really causing the problems in the world, right? I mean, they're turning on the people that want to believe in science and rationality, regardless of what your spiritual beliefs are.
And I think it's fair to say that you have concerns about the sort of neo-atheists in terms of misogyny. Are they not open to female voices? Those are all legitimate, specific concerns that we could explore. We might agree, we might disagree.
Sure,
but the broader issue is what I think you're getting at, right?
Yeah, and of course, and yes, in terms of every look, the Gamergate thing, there's misogyny there. There's obviously misogyny on the right. There's misogyny on the left. Trust me, I know. I'm in the left. There's plenty of misogyny. So everyone just because you have a slightly different thought than what your supposed group is supposed to think doesn't mean you're hate-filled, doesn't mean you're a bigot, doesn't mean you're a misogynist. And that's where I really think that the progressives especially need to be better. We need to be more tolerant if this is a real movement of progressive values, then it needs to be about tolerance. We don't all have to agree on everything. And when you don't agree with someone, that doesn't automatically mean they're the worst of everything. And that seems to be the way that the thing's splintering. And also, it could partly just be because of the internet and Twitter and YouTube comments, everyone's sitting alone, anonymously attacking everybody. So, part of it's just sort of superfluous, made up anonymous nonsense.
And I think it also needs to be
aware.
I think it also needs to be about nuance in this particular sense, that we often criticize the right for their kind of very superficial points of view on issues. Hey, taxes are a burden. Let's relieve people of taxes, period, right? No analysis of what it actually means going beyond the first layer. There are times when I see progressives falling into the same knee-jerk superficial reactions where if they did a nuanced analysis, they'd see the progressive cause maybe a little different.
Of course. And that's why that was what was so disappointing fundamentally to me about the Bill Maher thing, because there needs to be a second thought. And I think this partly is, and I talk about this on my show a lot, just the social media world we live in. So someone says something, let's say someone tweets something, you immediately tweet a response. And then that seems to be it. And then maybe that little piece then takes off in a new way. But sometimes there's more than just one thought. And we have to let that exist. And we have to let that be. And again, make sure that we don't all agree on everything. It really is okay. And if we become less tolerant, then we're really, really screwed.
We've been speaking with Dave Rubin, host of the Rubin Report, comedian. What's the best way for people to find all your material, Dave?
Well, it's all up there on the YouTube. I think you know a little something about the YouTube. It's youtube.com/Rubin Report, RUBIN, and I'm on the Twitter. And by the way, Pakman, I got to tell you, I watched all your Gamergate stuff, and I was going to do something on Gamergate myself, and I'm still debating it. But after watching you, who is incredibly thorough, and you do your research, and you want to be fair, and I know you don't have a horse in that race, and watching the craziness around Gamergate, I don't know if I'm going to do it because I think you've done the heavy lifting, and maybe I'll just push people to you.
Well, yeah, I would advise you to tread lightly and make sure that you research, because I started digging into it and I realized this is not the type of interview that I can prepare for in an hour.
I'm not kidding. I read probably 50 articles. I watched, good 30, 40 videos on it. And it's one of these rabbit hole kind of things. And then when it gets to Twitter, talking about Twitter and this, tweet one thing and then 8,000. Then when it gets there, it's like, you don't know what the truth is. Also, this one other thing on this, all these people that are tweeting anonymously. Now, I get it. If you're in Egypt and there's a middle of a revolution and you got to tweet anonymously to say where your location is in Tahrir Square, that's great. But all these people that are here where we are free, that are anonymously tweeting about stuff. Now, I get it also about they're threatening people and all kinds of stuff. So there's terrible stuff too. But this anonymous thing, I think is kind of dangerous. But you did a hell of a job. I'll keep watching you and then decide what I want to do.
All right. Thanks, Dave. Pleasure having you on.
Yeah. Thank you, David.